And welcome back, everybody. As you can see, the production values have risen, which is fantastic, isn't it? Yes, it is. Absolutely incredible. I mean, they haven't risen much, but it's still, something. And there's an outro screen coming up too. It's going to be very, very low production value outro screen, but it has its custom soundtrack and it is an outro screen, so I hope you're all looking forward to that. Either way, let's go ahead and what this video is going to be about is showcasing the newest, the best, the greatest submarine of the Epsilon fleet, the Nautilus. A very, very unoriginal name that I thought was very, very original when I came up with it, but looks like there are actually, even in real life, there have been at least 6 US submarines that have been named the Nautilus. But hey, at least, actually, I don't think there's anything I can say that, because I'm not the only one being an original, because somebody just made 5 extras. There has been 5 other submarines that have been named the Nautilus that have not been original. Yes, that's my point. Exactly. But either way, let's go ahead and hop on the vehicle designer and see what it is all about. So let me see, where are you? Yeah, okay, yes, there we go. It uses revised Generation 3 technique of propulsion balancing, which is, I believe, yes, it's the same technique, but yeah, basically the same very technique that was used in the Piranha. The Generation 2 technology was very, very different, and I might actually make a video on that, because my plan is to go over Gen 2, Gen 3, and the Gen 4 ways of doing that balancing. It's going to be quite interesting. They might be very, very good videos if I just, don't F them up, That's the idea. But as you can see, this is a very mighty vessel, and it's only, if you paid attention, costs 156,000 RP, which is very low, especially for an Atlas class. If we go ahead and look at other subs I've made, let me see, some aspirant, there we go, a shark, that's a bad example. Yes, here we go, that's a more expensive submarine, the aspirant 02, the Cortex. However, it's very, very cost efficient, and it is super effective with its not 1, not 2, not even 6, but 10 massive 7-block long torpedoes packing 5 fragmentation warheads with increasing cone angle for penetrating all kinds of armor. It also has a very impressive array of the hydrofoil, of course. A very massive hydrofoil array that allows it to keep its depth in a very accurate manner, and it very rarely has to use the emergency balloons it has. Very, very many of, I believe it's going to be about half a dozen, to help it get off the ground should it ever go there. Its pitch is, speaking of ever going there, let's go ahead and have the pitch that's supposed to make sure that that does not happen is being controlled by a fair number of jet stabilizers. And so is the roll, because if this thing rolls over, the up becomes down and down becomes up, and things will go very, very wrong indeed. It also has some invisible shielding. It's very simple. You just have a light color, and you have the alpha set to 0.1, I believe. Let me see. Yes, 0.1. And this gives it, underwater it's completely invisible, and even above water it's barely visible, which I think is a very cool effect. And as you can see, there is a very massive plate of it up on top of here. That's where I dumped all the extra energy I had. And then there is a very, very tiny plate in here. It's 10 power, but it protects the missile arrays from any, hits straight from above. And then there is this angled arm over here that is going to protect the AI area. Well, rather motor anyway. It's fine. And then there's the big just chunk of shielding to protect it overall from many, many angles. It has a very good array of small propellers that are going to have its yaw controlled, so that it's locking onto the target with its broadside, which is, it tries to broadside as much as possible at 0 degrees, so it's pointing straight at the enemy, and it can just shoot its hail of missiles very, very quickly, because the ammo storage over here is very, very big indeed, and it has a ton of ammunition processors which allow this thing to actually sustain its fire rate, which is rather incredible considering it has a lot of missiles. And I think that's pretty much it for the technical details. Let's see this thing in action. As you can see, it is sinking almost immediately. And no, I did not have to script this. This is the first shot, believe it or not. I've actually filmed this video 3 times now because of technical difficulties. Trademark. So, and every single time it has done that, so it's a very reliable ship when it comes to that. However, as you can see, it is also moving rather stably, and it is going down about 2 meters a second in a very stable manner, which is always brilliant to see. You might think it's rolling over a little bit, but that's just temporary thing. When it's controlling its yaw, it is going to cause some issues because those things are not perfectly balanced, which is something you could work on, but the jet stabilizers do the job. It's fine. However, now that it's underwater, let's give it a worthy opponent. How about Sea Viper? Let's see which one will win. Sea Vipers are actually very, very scary. You should never underestimate a Sea Viper. Because, you know, seriously, this lower class, if you have no defenses against a Sea Viper, you are screwed. Hoplite actually can destroy that thing, absolutely no problem, just saying, you know. Which is why you need air support, which is why I am going to do some videos on air support very, very shortly. Because it is incredibly important when you are running a submarine fleet. But as you can see, the Sea Viper, the truly worthy opponent, has been mauled to death very, very quickly, which is exactly what we like to see. Now let's go ahead and get some you know, let's go ahead and, you know, step up. Maybe, let's not go too crazy. Plunderer, yeah. That's very, no. One step above Sea Viper, right? Oh, I did not know they could do that. That's kind of fancy. Anyway, those flares are not going to do an awful lot. Because, well, they are flares, and these things are sonar, and that's, yeah, it's very much of no use to them. Anyway, let's go ahead and just destroy its hull, because that's what we do. Has it already lost some power? Not quite. Possibly some, but not in any major way. As you can see, oh wow, it's already breached through the ceiling. That's very, very efficient. But as you can see, for 150,000 RP, this thing is packing a punch. And there goes the ammo storage. As said, this thing is packing a punch. At this point, this thing is pretty much no more. And it is going to be finished off quite shortly. I mean, it is going to take some time because at the end of the day, these torpedoes are not very good at destroying very, very big things. And torpedoes never target the AI. That's just something they don't do. They don't like targeting the AI. They want to just, you know, slow the battle down as much as possible. I believe they could possibly be targeting the AI if I gave them the whatchamacallit, I don't remember the component that targets it at the expected intercept point. Possibly that would increase its accuracy against moving targets. However, I'm pretty happy with how this thing does its business, and I have nothing to complain, you know. Either way, I'm not going to tire you with watching this thing slowly be destroyed. I mean, some of you might enjoy it, but most of you will not, hopefully. Let's go ahead and get ourselves some more. Anyways, let's go ahead and get some submarine action, shall we? Let me think. Who have good submarines? I mean, we could just use these guys. They're kind of fun. Let's go ahead and spot a bit of them, you know? In all fairness, you know? But in all fairness, we will also be loading this thing deep underwater already, because those things have missiles, and I don't want to give them a second of time to launch them and cause big issues for me. So let's go ahead and spawn in the Nautilus and see how it does. And there the missile barrage has been sent. Let's hope it's been sent in somewhat the right direction. Am I right? Yes, there is some. As you can see, these things are kind of cool. However, they are much more expensive than the Nautilus, which is kind of crazy considering I just spawned 4 of them. That's how confident I am with the ship, and I think that might bite me in the ass. That's completely plausible. My overconfidence might just bite me in the ass. Let's see. Well, at least these torpedoes are doing it for them, so I am not too worried right now. Yeah, there we go. It is taking some heavy hits right now. And those things really... Oh, now they resurfaced because that's what they do. I don't know why they do that, but they do that. And let's see. And they don't have too advanced logic on when they resurface. It doesn't seem. It's kind of odd. Makes them not so much submarines, but rather just, you know, underwater missile carriers, which are kind of cool though. They are kind of cool, and I might do a video on them. I have not yet to design one, but I would very much like to do so one day. And yeah, these things are just dead. One of them is already completely down, and we are just and yes, the missiles actually are very self-harming, which is a big issue for them, because they really can't afford to take any more damage, and they are doing it for themselves, which is really terrible. And they're more and more damage, as per usual. And helicopter planes underwater, that's a very interesting idea. I'm going to do a lot more research on the aerial AI video, because the Generation 4 is the newest technique, and I'd rather be a little bit more, proficient with it before I make a tutorial, because there is plenty of things to cover there. Because in the end you have to use aerial propulsion, which is a very interesting subject. I'm not going to discuss it too much here, because this is to show for the Nautilus, not the aerial AI. Even I believe actually those have naval AI, so it's a very bad example even. Because the developer submarines always have naval AI, which is an interesting choice, I must admit. I guess, it's the more logical choice, of course, but actually it's not so much, because in the end you could think of this as an underwater plane, and it doesn't feel too crazy after that, Either way, let's not get too much into that. We'd rather watch the destruction comments on these poor little subs. And these things cost about 1,000,000 RP together, and this 150,000 RP thing could just... Well, you can see what it can do to them, I'm not going to even name it. It's up for all you guys watching to see how this thing does. Looks like, by the way, the first tutorial has got a pretty good... what's the word? Perception, I suppose. And thank you very much for that. And I hope the clicks are a little bit less loud now. I hear my mouse clicks are even worse than the keyboard. I have to just, because there's a massive difference between a small click and the big click. A big difference, as you can see. And yes, this is the beautiful missile array this thing can do, because it's constantly turning as it tries to perfect its aim, I suppose. Perfect its aim, that's maybe the wrong word. It's correcting its aim, which means it's constantly on the turn. But let's not bore you anymore with these submarines getting slowly destroyed. Because submarines are very good at disabling things, but they are very bad at destroying them. Which is, that's just how it's gonna go. There isn't too much you can do about it. Torpedoes by their nature aren't very good at doing that sort of thing. Even to other submarines. So let's go ahead and get out there and get the... Whatchamacallit? Oh, yes, of course. It is the qualification testing. Let's go ahead and have a qualification testing session. And this is something I'm going to be cutting out, because I want to test my editing skills and see how they will work. I'm very, very hopeful if it will work fantastic, even though I'm a little bit afraid it's not going to work at all fantastic. So what we're going to do is drop the Nautilus underwater and the target underwater, because the sea level is not sea level, but rather like 5 meters above sea level, which is completely unfair for torpedoes. Usually targets aren't floating on top of the air. Let's just put it there. And monitor, yeah, no tests. We are going to be running 4 tests to kind of account for the luck factor. Even then, there is a slightly, inconsistency with the results, but it's much smaller with 4 than 1. So, alright, I'm gonna get back to you when the results are done. So, be right back. And I am back, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, the game crashed, so I cannot show you the results. However, I have done this test so many times previously, because the recording has left up every time. So the result is averaging at around 1.77, which is a very low score for a ship, but a very high score for a submarine. You see, the way this qualification testing works is that you are dealing damage to an artificial target, which is, by the way, very, very small, and it's almost a single point, believe it or not. And it is firing all kinds of weapons at you, and its DPS is going to continue going up as you go. The problem is that this inherently is giving advantage to ships with a high DPS and especially high alpha strike, compared to things that are like mine, who are supposed to stay down there, keep low profile and just keep hammering it until it dies. Because in real battle, the enemy fire rate, or the DPS of the enemy, is actually going down. Especially with submarines that usually tend to try to take out the ammo storage. Once they do their job, usually the enemy is pretty much unable to fire at that point. And yeah, that's the idea behind that's the philosophy behind the idea of submarines. They are very slow to kill, but very quick to disable, which is why they can be incorporated into much more battleship-based doctrines with high success as well. However, my usually submarines of mine usually score between 0.2 and 0.5, so 1.8 is absolutely amazing. It's crazy. So yeah, I think that's pretty much wrapping it up. So we are going to move on to our super fancy outro section. It's going to be very fancy indeed, and I hope you all enjoyed this. And if you have any feedback on a very specific question, do you want me to do the tutorials in the way that I have multiple ships that are pre-built and I go over them, showcase the features, have more of that kind of stuff, or that I build one ship from start to finish on video? Which one would you like to see? Because I believe that if I do it this way, that just a showcase way, with some doing finishing maybe some bits off or whatever, that allows me to cover way more content within the about half an hour to an hour period of time. While on the other hand, if I build one ship from the beginning, I'm only going to cover the one specific application for the technology I'm trying to cover. However, I will be, showing the entire process, and you can just follow along and, replicate it. So please give me your feedback on that thing, and see you all later.